is Louise?
Louise is a leader, a risk taker, and someone who loves to tell stories with her body of all sorts. Dance, action, you name it.
So what initially got you to become a storyteller?
Ballet is my first love. From the time I could walk, I was walking on my little tiptoes, and I think my mom and dad did a great job of kind of tapping into that. And I have two sisters. We all like different things, and they just funneled us into the activities we were drawn most to. So I actually left home at a young age and went to ballet school. I was always in love with the classics, and so yeah, I was always a storyteller in that sense. It just transformed as the years went on.
Do you think it was always within your cards growing up to become a performing artist in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from the time I was young, I've always had a real directionality, if that's a word, about me, like an unspoken, unquestionable, there's no other choice, really. There was never another option for what I wanted to do. Whether it was about being a performer, like a star performer in the limelight, that was actually never something for me that was at the top of the list. I had things on my bucket list as a performer that I wanted to experience, but I think my calling as it became louder and louder was more on the creative side of storytelling.
What was it like navigating between so many different roles?
Yeah, there's challenges that come with doing more than one thing. I think a lot of it gets wrapped up in identity. I know when I first started to branch out, or I saw the stunt side of my career start growing, I felt like I had to hide the dance side, or I had to hide the stunts from the choreography side so that people would take me seriously in what I was trying to do. But ultimately, as time went on, I think I let go of needing to see a role model doing what I was doing, and just understanding that I don't have someone to look up to who's doing all these things, but I'm going to do it. And as time went on, I realized how complementary one was to another. So my experience in stunts has led me to have even more understanding of movement for camera. The leaders in that community are incredible and have taught me a lot about how I want to lead on the dance side. And then as well, what I've gained from being a dancer and choreographer, it's just an element of grace, the ability to pick up choreography, body awareness, all of these things. So over time, they became kind of one beautiful, cohesive unit.
Mm-hmm. Film and TV is a very predominantly male-run industry. How do you navigate between all these different roles within it as also a woman?
Thank you for asking that question. It's funny, when Jeff and I were sitting here earlier together, we kind of ran out of time on one of the questions, but I was thinking of how supportive he's been for me as a female counterpart, because as much as we don't want to think about it, it is a predominantly male, or it has been, I should say, it has been a predominantly male industry. Leaders in the positions of power, calling the shots are often men. So I have had a journey convincing people that I can do this. And I think once I get 15 minutes with them, or we get in a meeting, or we get chatting, the rest of it is out the window, but it's always that initial convincing, or that initial impression. I've had to really make sure that I don't shrink, because that's something I have to be responsible for too, is am I taking up as much space as the person next to me who's up for the job? I have a responsibility here to also step in confidently. So there's been a lot of growth, both in learning how to change people's minds, and also doing everything I can to make sure that I step forward with strength. But over time, it fades away. Your reputation precedes you, and I like to think that it's going to be something that we're not facing as much anymore.
I think that's really inspirational to hear, especially from what I hear about also just stunt work, and just seeing that you can do it all. You can still dance, you can still choreograph, you can do the stunts, you can just kind of do everything. Yeah,
there's an interesting journey too as a female in this industry, because, and I would say in many careers, when you start to get a lot of traction, you start to really feel like yourself stepping into your own and 2 feet on the ground, is the same time that you think you might want to start having a family, or you might find yourself looking for that element of life to come to fruition. And so there's this kind of inner battle that I know I've had, of making sure I know the the openings I've created for myself professionally, and I want to make sure I see those through and gain everything and set up everything I can so that I can have this beautiful career I've always dreamed of, while also not forgetting that there's more to life. And so I think that's something we don't always talk about, especially in dance. It's like you're using your body and you're getting yourself to a place in your career when you also might simultaneously want to be having a family or looking at setting some goals in that way.
What is that like, trying to balance all of those things that you want between like just life but also career?
Yeah, a lot of questioning. Am I choosing myself so much that I'm not going to have anyone else to share it with, you know, as time goes on? And I think I've learned that like you have to make choices to carve out the time for family, carve out the time for relationships or just personal growth and other things not related to dance. But it requires some like conscious effort. Yeah.
What was it like working on a series of unfortunate events?
Yeah, my job on a series of unfortunate events, I was in it as a dancer for an episode. So it was very fleeting in my memory. But what I think of when I think of that show is, you know, we work with actors and actresses and performers who we've maybe look at as iconic, and usually you get in the room with them and you just become equals. Well, Catherine O'Hara was in that scene, and I was starstruck because I watched her in, you know, everything from Home Alone to Waiting for Guffman, For Your Consideration. I just respect her so much as a comedian, and so being kind of dancing alongside and watching her work is like, that's what pops out for me when I think of that memory.
What does Louise do on a day off?
Louise, on a day off, definitely moves her body. I work out or I train. I've obviously through stunt work found martial arts. I mean, it's an important thing for me to be familiarizing my body with, and through that, there's a real like mental and spiritual aspect to it as well. A dance you're doing with a partner, it's not like sometimes there's choreography to it, but there's also like an energetic thing that goes on. So there's a lot I get out of those classes. I like to be outside. We live in a beautiful city with a ton of nature around. I have beautiful friends. So I really try, like I do consciously try and balance things out on my days off to, you know, make sure that everything I have to do work-wise, dance-related, is taken care of so I can enjoy the other things, but really make sure that I'm filling up my cup in other ways.
What keeps you going?
Young dancers keep me going. Yeah, it makes me a bit emotional. I'm just like, I remember how hard it was to make it happen. Sorry, I don't know why. I just, you have to work so hard to make this happen. And when I see them come in the room and I know how many times they've auditioned to just like even get there, and also knowing how fleeting this moment in your life is, but that if you don't do it, you'll always wonder if you did. I want to make sure that like their experience is both like enjoyable, but also going to set them up for either staying in the industry for as long as possible, or like the most beautiful memories and life skills that they can take on to something else. And we try and quantify like just kind of the reward you get out of all that time, and knowing that it's not necessarily a business that right away or if ever is going to be financially super lucrative. You know, there's all these things that come into play, but for me, in my experience, when I think about like, I did a job with Cirque du Soleil that I had to work so damn hard for just to get the role, had so many no's along the way, but like the feeling of that experience every night, taking my headpiece off and bowing to the audience, when I remember what it's like to be an audience member, it's like, I don't know how you quantify what's worth, you know, how much work is worth it. Is it worth it to focus on that so and maybe miss out on attacking your education right away, or, you know, all these other options? It's hard to say, but I think I just recognize that I have lived a very rich life because I've been able to pursue this.
What would the title of this chapter in your life be right now?
The title of this chapter of my life would probably be Foot on the Gas. Yeah, just like always moving with like confidence and energy in the direction of the things I believe I deserve.
3 words that your friends would describe you as.
honest, directional, reliable.
If you were a dish, what would you be?
So it's interesting, this question, because recently someone told me it's not a dish, but if I was a drink, I would be sake, because it's like thoughtful, intentionally made, all of these, like smooth and understated. So I'm gonna just use that as my answer.
What movie soundtrack would describe your life right now?
Star Wars? I don't know. A symphony, like a beautiful symphony of things happening, but then like something comes out of nowhere, and then there's like a really like long quiet moment, and then something else. Yeah, probably a Star Wars soundtrack.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.